Matthew Lesh, the Director of Public Policy at the Institute of Economic Affairs, about this rather unlaboury commitment by the government to cut incapacity benefits. They say they want to scare up, from this particular action, 3 billion squid to add to the 40 billion they're trying to get their mitts on for the country's coffers. But it turns out, well, we knew this anyway, didn't we, that incapacity benefits are basically more lucrative than part-time work. No wonder nobody wants to go do a ratty, horrible job anymore when they can sit at home, claim benefits and watch the telly box. Matthew, do you have any sort of statistics or overview on this? How many people are claiming incapacity benefits, whether they are better off not working than going into the workplace?
To begin by quoting the most famous intellectual of our time, of course, Kim Kardashian, nobody wants to work anymore, do they? We do have this real problem here, and I think the new Labour government has admitted that effectively the Tories were right when they were saying that the welfare bill is unsustainable, that there does need to be some kind of a crackdown on the system, because you've just got this massive cost burden, and that's really what's driving this policy. There's a real lack of detail here about what they're actually going to do to get people back into work, but more or less they're saying we're going to take the Tories' policy as given and maybe slightly change it around the edges, and that's because if things continue their current trajectory, long-term sickness costs could exceed £100 billion by the decade's end. That's simply not sustainable. That's a burden on the rest of society. But there's also another point here which I think is quite important, which is this is a human tragedy on an industrial scale. This is the state encouraging people not to work, to languish, to not have much purpose and meaning and direction in their life. And there is a big problem here. This is what the Institute for Fiscal Studies has pointed out this week, that if someone re-enters the workforce on a part-time basis and they're currently on incapacity benefit, let's say they start working 16 hours per week, a part-time job, they'll be worse off. They'll be £1,200 worse off a year as a result of entering work. And this is very much the definition of a welfare trap. It's immoral and it's expensive for everyone involved.
I mean, worklessness back in my day was just completely shrouded in shame. To not have a job, not be able to provide, not be self-sufficient was something that most people would find utterly unconscionable. But now it almost seems to be some sort of trendy thing. Oh, guess what? I don't go to work. Heart isn't that great. And I think this is feeding into the mental health crisis, which is then being used by people to say that that's why they can't go to work. If you sit at home by yourself, just stuck in your mobile phone, doom scrolling, watching telly box, not actually going out and occupying your mind, guess what? You're probably going to go balmy.
Yeah, look, we know this from all the economic statistics. Despite what people say about disliking work, the vast majority of people actually do enjoy their jobs, and it provides them some kind of intrinsic satisfaction. It's worth just stepping back and thinking about what a job is. It's the fact that you're providing a value, a service to society, that someone's willing to pay you a salary for. It's no matter what that job is, whether it's sweeping the streets or running a major international institution at whatever level. This is the creating something and doing something for other people, and being a kind of a functioning member of the community. When you're not working, when you're stuck on these incapacity benefits, I think you're right. It's quite depressing and sad a life. I mean, we've all been there before, between jobs or not really knowing what to do with ourselves, and it's a pretty rotten feeling, isn't it? And it's something we shouldn't be encouraging. It's something that the welfare state shouldn't be incentivizing. And you're right that if you want to look at something like a mental health crisis, it's not going to be helped whatsoever by a welfare system that encourages people to stay out of work. It's not going to be helped by, quite frankly, these concerns around the easiest thing for a doctor to do is, who might not be able to provide you any clear care, is to kind of sign a document and say, yeah, you're incapacitated, you don't have to work anymore. It's not ultimately good for anyone involved, certainly not the person who's out of work. There is this challenge here, though, of course, which is no one really knows how to fix this problem. You can change the benefits and the incentives in the system, but it's really hard to get someone out of bed and back into the workplace. And I'm genuinely intrigued to see what Labor comes back with, because they've more or less taken what the Tories said they do in terms of reducing their welfare bill, but they haven't said how they're going to do it. And if they're not willing to take some harsher methods, changing around the way we do work assessments, for example, so that it's a little bit harder to get signed off work, perhaps reassessing people more regularly, perhaps even if you have some level of incapacity, you're still expected to search for work to some extent. What is going to be the carrot as well as the stick here to get people back into the workplace so that we don't leave people languishing?
Right. I mean, one thing that alarms me is it's all very well saying we're going to cut sickness benefits, we're going to make sure that people who want to go back into work can get reskilled and do that X, Y and Z. But at the same time, they're then talking about workers' rights, such as being able to claim sick leave from day one of employment. I think that is potentially going to exacerbate the situation, particularly with young people, 71% of whom have never worked, 16 to 24-year-olds. They've never had a job. They've never earned money. If you can suddenly say, well, guess what? You can actually go get a job and you don't actually have to do it. You can say you're sick and they'll pay you anyway. I don't think it's really going to help the situation at all.
Yeah, I think this is a bigger problem with Labor's employment rights package, that they're quite frankly being deceptive to the public. They're going out and saying, oh, won't it be great if we put all these requirements on employers to sickness benefits from day one, unfair dismissal rights from day one, except perhaps with some exemptions for 9 months, requiring things like flexible work access from day one. What they don't seem to be willing to admit or appreciate is the fact that when you make it more expensive to hire people, inevitably employers are going to hire fewer people. They're not going to take a risk. If someone has, let's say they've been out of work for a while, they've been on incapacity benefits, and you're an employer looking at them and you say, look, I really like you, I want to give you a go, but if things go wrong, I can't get rid of you because the law won't allow me to move you on quickly, you're going to be less likely to hire them in the first place. And we actually see this, particularly in places on the continent where there are much stronger employment rights, they do make it more difficult to get rid of people, and the result of that is very high levels of youth unemployment, up to twice the UK's rate. So it really is young people who are much worse off as a result of these laws, because they don't get the opportunities in the first place. They don't get the workplace experience to allow them to move up and get better jobs down the track. You leave them languishing because there just won't be the jobs available for them.
Yeah, Matthew, I couldn't agree more. It's both a disservice to young people and disincentivising the idea of going and earning your own money, which is surely the most noble and dignified way to go about adulthood. Matthew Lesh there.